Plans do not guide you, they tranquilize you. They create a map that flatters your ego while stripping you of sovereignty in the real world. A plan is not a weapon. It is a sedative wrapped in productivity language, a pacifier for men who fear entering conflict without guarantees. You were taught to believe that direction equals safety, that order protects you from failure. But direction built on forecasts is a cage, a polished, organized, color-coded cage. The moment you write a plan, you begin negotiating with reality instead of confronting it. You script a future that will never exist and then bind your identity to defending it. Planning is ritual, not strategy. It feels like movement, so you mistake it for progress. You write, outline, schedule, refine, each step producing the illusion of control. The battlefield does not reward the man who predicts outcomes. It rewards the one who moves before outcomes stabilize. Predators do not plan. They orient, stalk, and act in proximity to opportunity. Only prey needs reassurance before moving. You build timelines because uncertainty terrifies you. You want the world to promise it will cooperate before you step forward. So you construct charts to shield yourself from volatility, the very environment where power is extracted. You convince yourself you are preparing, but what you are really doing is avoiding consequence. Every hour spent refining plans is an hour where someone colder, faster, and less afraid is already rewriting the terrain you intend to operate in. Direction becomes a narcotic. You return to your plans the way a soldier returns to a bunker. Not to advance, but to delay. You adjust goals, rewrite milestones, polish phrases. It feels meticulous. It feels disciplined. But discipline without collision is paralysis. The more detailed the plan, the smaller your world becomes, because every deviation now feels like failure instead of opportunity. This is the true cost. Plans turn you into a caretaker of a concept. You stop responding to reality and start defending a diagram. You reject openings because they were not part of the plan. You ignore threats because they arrive unscheduled. You shape your behavior to protect structure instead of position. And slowly, your life becomes maintenance, not movement. Look at the language planners use. Someday, later, when it aligns, when the time is right. These are not timelines. They are escape routes. A man addicted to planning is not aiming at the future. He is hiding from the present. He wants power without exposure. He wants victory without blood. He wants certainty in a world that selects men precisely by how they act when certainty dissolves. A sovereign operator does not chase direction. He destroys it. He collapses false futures, strips away imagined scenarios, and stands naked inside the chaos of what exists now. He replaces "where do I want to go?" with "where is the leverage in this exact moment?" Strategy emerges from contact, not prediction. Power emerges from motion, not preparation. You are not lost because you lack plans. You are lost because you worship them. You mistake organization for identity. You cling to direction because it protects you from the humiliation of being unprepared, and that humiliation is the furnace where stronger men are forged. This chapter rips the mask off planning and exposes it for what it is: a sophisticated avoidance mechanism wearing the uniform of discipline. Direction is not power. Direction is the story you tell yourself to avoid entering the arena before you feel ready. And men who wait to feel ready are filtered out. Power is lost long before inaction is visible. It dies inside the internal machinery that convinces you waiting is intelligence. Hesitation is rationality, and delay is maturity. This chapter exposes that mechanism, the psychological engine that keeps you contained while you believe you are being strategic. The first mechanism is prediction addiction. Your mind seeks patterns because patterns make vulnerability feel avoidable. You rehearse scenarios in your head, run simulations, anticipate outcomes, not to prepare, but to escape exposure. The brain rewards this behavior chemically. Each imagined victory, each future projection, releases the same internal reward as real progress. You feel accomplished without moving. You feel powerful without entering risk. And like any drug, the more you consume it, the less capable you become of acting without it. The second mechanism is safety anchoring. You attach your identity to outcomes that have not occurred yet. You tell yourself that once conditions align, once the timing stabilizes, then action will be justified. You build psychological checkpoints, milestones, deadlines, phases, all engineered to delay agency. You convince yourself the future must permission you before you move. And when conditions inevitably shift, you reset the timeline and call it adjustment, when in truth it is surrender disguised as refinement. The third mechanism is loss avoidance paralysis. Your ego fears correction more than defeat. You would rather protect the image of being capable but preparing than risk proving yourself inadequate in the open. So you build layers of planning to shield your reputation from friction. You call it patience, rationality, standards. But beneath all of it lives a singular terror: exposure. Motion can humiliate you. Delay cannot. So you choose delay over and over until it becomes identity. Planning becomes a containment field. It shrinks your operational range. You only act in spaces where certainty feels high, where error feels unlikely, where outcomes appear predictable. But real advantage exists outside predictability. Leverage appears in distortion, instability, and pressure. You never encounter those environments because your internal system filters them out as too early, not prepared, or not part of the plan. Safety transforms into a prison that feels logical. This mechanism also rewires your self-perception. Instead of measuring yourself by what you do under uncertainty, you measure yourself by what you intend to do once conditions align. You begin to identify with your potential instead of your performance. You take pride in intentions, blueprints, strategies, not outcomes. You become a curator of imagined futures, a caretaker of possibilities instead of a participant in conflict. And once identity fuses with planning, action becomes a threat to the self. Because the moment you act, the fantasy must compete with reality. The imagined version of you, disciplined, decisive, brilliant, now risks being disproven. So your mind defends itself the only way it knows how. It convinces you that more preparation is required, more clarity is necessary, more alignment must occur. The machine resets. The loop strengthens. Sovereignty dissolves. Predators do not fall into this loop because they do not anchor identity to prediction. They anchor it to proximity, to the ability to move inside conditions that are unfinished, hostile, and unclear. They do not ask whether the moment is ready for them. They test whether they are capable inside the moment. Their self-concept is not, I will be powerful once the plan activates, but I am measured by what I can do while the ground is still shifting. The mechanism of delay exists for one reason: to protect you from pain at the cost of power. It shields your ego while draining your influence. It gives you comfort while erasing your relevance. And every day you obey it, you are not simply standing still. You are being quietly selected out by environments that reward only those willing to collide with uncertainty. Until you break this mechanism, no plan, no strategy, no intention matters. Because the system running you is designed to prevent movement. The danger is not that you plan. The danger is that planning becomes identity. Once a man fuses his sense of worth to structure, routine, and imagined futures, he stops behaving like an organism and begins behaving like a system. Systems do not adapt. Systems maintain themselves. This chapter dissects the three archetypes of the planned man, not as personalities, but as defensive structures his mind builds to avoid exposure, conflict, and consequence. The first archetype is the scheduler. He worships organization because organization shields him from chaos. His calendar is his armor. He arranges, meetings, routines, habits, rituals, each one designed to create a perimeter around discomfort. His life looks disciplined, but his discipline is containment. He convinces himself that productivity equals power, when in truth he is only becoming more efficient at avoiding decisive collisions. The scheduler is addicted to order because order prevents him from confronting what happens when order breaks. He does not enter environments that cannot be scripted. He does not engage with people he cannot predict. He is not building a life. He is maintaining a schedule. The second archetype is the dream architect. He lives in the future because the future cannot contradict him. He constructs grand narratives about who he will become once conditions align. The business, the body, the social status, the wealth. His identity feeds on projection. He is intoxicated by potential because potential allows him to remain undefeated. He talks like a strategist, thinks like a visionary, and moves like a ghost. Every delay becomes symbolism. Every hesitation becomes long-term thinking. He surrounds himself with ideas larger than his actions, and the gap between vision and execution becomes his sanctuary. The dream architect is not chasing transformation. He is preserving the fantasy of inevitability. The third archetype is the safety monarch. He believes control is superiority. He avoids uncertainty not because he fears failure, but because he fears losing dominance over his environment. He chooses predictable positions, predictable relationships, predictable routines, all of which keep him in familiar territory where his strengths are unchallenged. He confuses control with competence. He refuses to enter arenas where he is not already advantaged. And so his competence fossilizes. His authority becomes ceremonial. The safety monarch rules only over territory that no longer matters. Each archetype looks different on the surface. One appears disciplined, one appears visionary, one appears composed, but they share the same internal law. Movement that threatens identity is rejected. The scheduler rejects disruption. The dream architect rejects reality. The safety monarch rejects exposure. And because identity governs behavior, each archetype will sabotage opportunities that demand volatility, humility, or aggression. A sudden opening appears, they hesitate. A threat emerges, they rationalize. A door closes, they return to planning. Archetypes do not fail loudly, they erode quietly. Under pressure, these men do not adapt. They retreat into the structure that protects them. When the environment accelerates, they stabilize themselves instead of matching its speed. When stronger men seize timing, they respond by reviewing strategy. They survive only in conditions that remain still. But environments that matter do not remain still. War selects the predator. Markets select the mover. Conflict selects the man who acts before identity intervenes. These archetypes are not psychological flaws. They are survival formations developed in childhood, education, work structures, and social conditioning. They reward obedience, predictability, and compliance. They produce men who function, but never threaten. And the longer a man lives inside one archetype, the more fragile he becomes outside of it. He cannot tolerate uncertainty. He cannot stomach humiliation. He cannot move without narrative. So he stays where he is powerful, which means he stays where he will never grow. This chapter exists to force recognition. You are not merely delaying action, you are preserving a persona that cannot survive contact with reality. To move forward, that persona must be threatened. To gain power, it must be dismantled. Power does not reward the man who predicts outcomes. It rewards the man who pressures outcomes into existence. To understand why your devotion to planning weakens you, you must study the environments where power was actually taken. Unstable courts, collapsing markets, wartime transitions, social hierarchies in flux. In these arenas, plans were liabilities. Certainty was impossible. And men who clung to structure were devoured by men who could move before structure existed. History is not shaped by planners. It is shaped by opportunists. Rulers ascended not by following blueprints, but by exploiting fractures. They acted before the landscape stabilized, before information consolidated, before risk could be calculated. They understood a fundamental law of selection. Timing favors the mover, not the architect. The strategist who plans waits for equilibrium. The predator creates leverage inside distortion. Generals who won decisive conflicts did not execute master plans. They violated them when reality offered something better. They abandoned routes, reversed decisions, burned instructions. Their authority came from responsiveness, not rigidity. The men who perished were the ones who clung to maps drawn under conditions that no longer existed. Power is acquired in environments where information is incomplete, signals are noisy, and consequences are immediate. These conditions cannot be planned around. They can only be entered. Men who require certainty never enter. Men who require direction arrive too late. Every era disciplines the same type of man. The one who believes preparation entitles him to outcomes. Courts punished slow princes who waited for approval while rivals acted in whispers. Markets replaced careful builders with aggressive operators who seized momentum before analysis concluded. Social hierarchies advanced those who could shift identity rapidly, abandon roles, and step into power vacuums while others debated. In every case, the planner preserved dignity and lost position. Action without certainty is not recklessness, it is participation in reality. The world does not stabilize for you. It does not pause until your projections align. Environments shift under pressure, and power transfers to the one willing to move while the ground is still breaking. This is why your plans repeatedly fail. They are written for an imaginary world where conditions behave. But conditions do not behave. People defect. Alliances fracture. Timing collapses. Openings appear for seconds and then disappear forever. You cannot plan for these moments. You must be available to them. Weak men demand clarity before acting. Strong men test themselves inside ambiguity. And ambiguity is ruthless. It exposes competence in real time. That is why planners avoid it. They would rather curate a narrative of not yet than discover what they actually are when guarantees vanish. Human nature compounds the threat. People do not reward plans. They respond to presence, force, and movement. Social dynamics tilt toward the man who creates pressure, not the one who forecasts intentions. Authority emerges from decisive behavior observed under uncertainty. Once others witness that you can act without reassurance, they reorganize around you. They defer, follow, or compete, but they no longer ignore you. Planning prevents this from happening because planning keeps you invisible. You remain theoretical. A man who will act soon, will become something, will execute the plan. Your identity exists in future tense. And future tense men are never threats. History remembers the man who acted while others waited. Not because he was smarter. Not because he was prepared. But because he was present when the moment demanded exposure. This chapter exists to strip away the last illusion. Your plans are not neutral. They are not harmless. They are not responsible. They place you outside the arenas where selection occurs. And once selection happens without you, you do not get another chance. Power does not arrive when your plan is ready. It arrives when the environment fractures. And if you are not already moving, it passes to someone else. You do not escape planning by thinking differently. You escape it by replacing the ritual itself. This chapter is not motivation, philosophy, or inspiration. It is a surgical protocol designed to collapse the psychological structures that keep you waiting and force your behavior into environments where leverage actually exists. The first step is timeline destruction. You eliminate horizons, future milestones, and long-range intentions. You do not move your goals, you erase them. Every objective that lives in the future becomes a defense mechanism for delay. The longer the timeline, the safer you feel. So the timeline must die. You replace 6 months, this year, after I'm ready, with a single orientation, now or never. Not as a slogan, as a rule. If something cannot be advanced within the immediate environment, it does not exist. The second step is proximity execution. You stop operating from imagined outcomes and begin operating from contact points. People, rooms, conversations, frictions, competitive openings, unstable positions. You ask one question only. Where is power closest to me right now? Not where it might be. Not where it will be. Where it is within reach if you are willing to expose yourself. You move toward proximity even when clarity is absent, especially when clarity is absent, because proximity converts uncertainty into information, and information into leverage. The third step is constraint collapse. You strip away tools that enable passive preparation, excessive research, repeated note-taking, endless draft cycles, simulated progress. The operator does not stack resources before acting. He acts and then acquires resources under pressure. You reverse the order. Movement first, structure second. You initiate before you understand, and you refine only after the collision produces real constraints. This inversion rewires identity from "I plan so I can act" to "I act so I can see." The fourth step is exposure conditioning. You deliberately place yourself into environments where you cannot control perception. Calls instead of messages, presence instead of observation, confrontation instead of speculation. You remove buffers that let you remain theoretical. Exposure is not discomfort training. It is selection training. Each time you enter uncertainty and remain functional, your nervous system stops seeking safety as a prerequisite for agency. Competence becomes something proven under pressure rather than imagined under order. The fifth step is opportunistic dominance. You stop trying to execute the right move and begin exploiting whatever opening appears first. You do not wait for alignment. You create pressure and force alignment to emerge. Power is often hidden in imperfect opportunities that planners ignore because they do not match the script. The operator takes position early, absorbs volatility, and shapes outcomes from inside the chaos. Advantage does not come from precision. It comes from presence. The final step is ritual replacement. Planning is addictive because it offers psychological relief. You cannot merely remove it, you must replace it with a colder ritual. Daily decisive action taken before thought has the chance to negotiate. One action that changes position, creates tension, or exposes you to consequence. This becomes law. Reflection happens afterward, not before. You do not ask whether the move was optimal. You ask whether you were present when the environment shifted. This protocol will cost you comfort. It will remove the illusions that protected your self-image. You will feel smaller, less certain, more exposed, and that is the point. The man who requires confidence before acting will never see the terrain where power is acquired. The operator acts inside doubt and allows identity to harden through impact. You are not transforming your goals. You are eliminating the version of you that needed them. Movement replaces intention. Proximity replaces prediction. Presence replaces potential. From this point forward, you are measured not by what you plan to become, but by what you do while nothing is guaranteed. The version of you that worships plans cannot be upgraded. It must be executed. You cannot negotiate with that identity because it was built to survive inside comfort, predictability, and imagined futures. It will always resist exposure. It will always search for preparation. It will always find a reason to wait. This chapter is not about improvement. It is about replacement. Identity death begins with humiliation. You must confront the distance between who you claim to be and what you actually do when certainty dissolves. No narratives. No excuses. No timelines. You measure yourself by collisions. Where you hesitated, where you retreated, where you chose structure over movement. Every moment of avoidance becomes evidence. You do not rationalize it, you indict it. The planner self survives only when protected by story. Strip away the story and it collapses. That identity was built to keep you safe, obedient, predictable. It formed through schooling, routine labor, social reward systems that praise discipline without danger. You were taught to be reliable, organized, controllable. The world rewarded you for stability, not volatility. And so you became a man who appears strong while avoiding the arenas that would expose whether strength actually exists. To kill that identity, you must dismantle its gods. Certainty, validation, long-term projection, imagined superiority. You stop deriving worth from what you intend to do, what you believe you could do, what you plan to do, once the timing is right. Those illusions dissolve. Worth is no longer extracted from potential, only from behavior under pressure. This transition is surgical and violent, not emotional. The operator identity is not motivational. It is not confident. It is not loud. It is cold. It is functional. It does not need certainty because it does not require safety to act. It does not need narrative because it does not protect ego. It protects position. Where the planner asks, "Is this the right move?" the operator asks, "Does this move increase leverage now?" Where the planner seeks alignment, the operator imposes tension. He does not chase goals. He hunts proximity. He moves toward unstable environments because instability reveals opportunity. He embraces ambiguity because ambiguity exposes hierarchy, the incapable retreat, the competent advance. His identity is forged not in preparation, but in repeated exposure to conditions where nothing is guaranteed and action cannot be rehearsed. The operator is not fearless. He is indifferent to fear. Fear becomes data, not a barrier. Doubt becomes atmosphere, not a reason to pause. He expects loss, friction, mistakes, and does not treat them as identity threats. Failure is not a wound. It is a recalibration. The only true failure is absence from the arena when the moment fractures. This identity replaces comfort with consequence. You no longer ask how to feel ready. You ask whether you are present where selection is happening. You do not retreat to planning when uncertainty rises. You advance into it. You allow the environment to pressure you because pressure is the only condition that confirms whether you deserve position. Your sense of self becomes fused to movement, to timing, to decisive entry while others hesitate. The planner self dies the day you stop protecting it. The operator is born the moment you act before identity intervenes. From here forward, you are not the man who will become something. You are the man who is tested, publicly, repeatedly, without safety, and remains functional inside volatility. Sovereignty is no longer an idea you plan to reach someday. It is a state you earn through presence in the only arena that matters, the one where nothing is certain, and power transfers in silence. This is the threshold most men never cross, the moment where identity is no longer discussed, analyzed, or justified, but measured through consequence. There is no comfort here, no philosophy to hide behind, no narrative that rescues you from inaction. What remains is a single binary law. You are either present where selection occurs or you are erased by men who are. Environments do not reward intent. They reward pressure. They reward the man who appears in unstable territory before it stabilizes, who steps into fractures while others search for certainty, who acts without permission while planners rehearse superiority in private. Selection is not symbolic. It is mechanical. It removes men who hesitate and replaces them with men who can move. This is your last warning. The world does not care about your potential, your plans, or your imagined future self. It registers only what you can do under volatility. There are no guarantees. There is no ideal moment. There is no version of you that will one day be ready. Readiness is a myth manufactured to keep you obedient, patient, predictable. The perfect citizen, the stable worker, the unseen man. Systems depend on you waiting. Power depends on you refusing to. Look at your life as it currently exists, the routines, the stability, the places where nothing disrupts you. These are not signs of order. They are signs that you have been filtered into an environment that requires nothing from you. You are not protected there. You are contained there. And while you stabilize yourself, someone colder is already moving. He does not ask whether the opportunity belongs to him. He takes position and forces others to react. He does not polish identity. He proves it where witnesses are present. He does not plan to enter the arena. He is already inside it when the fracture appears. Men like this do not look extraordinary from a distance. They are not louder, smarter, or more gifted. The difference is simpler and more ruthless. They are willing to be exposed. They accept humiliation as a tax for power. They accept missteps as the price of proximity. They accept that survival is not granted to the careful. It is granted to the present. And once they take ground, you do not compete with them. You orbit them. This is the elite filter. It does not announce itself. It does not warn you when the moment arrives. It appears in a conversation you almost avoided, a move you postponed, a room you decided you were not ready to enter. You tell yourself you will return when timing is better. You never return. Because by the time you feel ready, the position is gone, absorbed by someone who did not ask for certainty. This is your command. Not motivation, not inspiration, not hope. Move now. Not someday. Not when the calendar aligns. Not when confidence arrives. Enter the environment that threatens you. Place yourself where you cannot hide behind structure, theory, or potential. Force reality to confront you and reveal what you are without the armor of preparation. If you break, you rebuild. If you fail, you recalibrate. If you hesitate again, you are finished. The operator does not wait to become powerful. He becomes powerful by refusing to wait. From this point forward, you do not talk about plans, futures, or intentions. You do not describe what you will one day do. You do not seek validation for progress that has not occurred. You step into proximity. You absorb volatility. You take ground before it belongs to you. And if you cannot do that, if you retreat to safety, delay, or structure, understand this clearly. You will not be punished. You will be replaced.